What is going on, everybody? My name is Quinn, and welcome back to the daily live puzzle solving series where we go through a puzzle that's rated just above 2000 level on chess.com. This is an advanced puzzle, my people, and we're going to crush it today and try to learn a lot from solving this. So we have kind of an endgame position here where our opponent has this dangerous pass pawn that's pretty well blockaded by our rook on d1. We have also the ability to create a pass pawn by playing c6, b takes c6, b takes c6, and have a c-file passer that's 2 squares away from promotion. And that is an opportunity for us. And he has his king that could potentially get back and blockade this square by going to d8, for example. He has 2 rooks that are very active, but they're not able to drop back and defend his king, and or the really interfere with the promotion of the pawn very much. And we have a couple of rooks that are both active in. We have one rook that's both active in supporting our pass pawn and active in defending against his pass pawn. So if we were to look at material in this position, he's got 6 pawns. We have just 5 pawns, and we both have 2 rooks. So we're down by 1 pawn. And so I think the key difference is the activity of this c2 rook, how it's playing both a defensive and an offensive role. And the goal of this puzzle is going to be to promote this pawn or use the threat of promoting this pawn to maybe win some material, possibly pick up this d2 pawn at some point, and possibly disrupt the coordination of his pieces. So let's look at some candidate moves. We have as an idea c6, and we looked at b takes c6. And here we can play b takes c6, or we could possibly just play b6. That's an interesting option as well. If we were to play b6, he could bring his rook to b3, and it doesn't look like we have a way of defending that pawn. It looks like we're just going to lose it. So let's bypass that line. c6, b takes c6. Now we play b takes c6 instead of b6. And he has, let's say, king to d8. King to d7 is not possible because our pawn's controlling that square. And if we play c7 check, he's got king to c8. And now we could potentially try to support the promotion of this pawn. But we can't play rook to b1 because then he would be promoting on us immediately with d1 equals queen. And then we would have to sack the rook for the queen, and then he would take back with his rook. So are there any moves that are more powerful than c6 in generating some sort of a counterattack for us to overcome his threat of promoting? He has ideas of potentially playing rook to e1. If you were to do that right away, we would just take the pawn with any of our rooks. So he has to keep both defenders here locked onto this pawn, and he can't access the full mobility of his rooks as a result. Are there any other candidate moves? If we move this rook to the b file, for example, we're still able to guard against this pawn on d2. So it is possible that we can move to b2. We could even move to a2. It's not really clear at this point what benefit those moves bring. Rook to b2 to prepare a move like c6 and then followed by b6 is, I think, a bit too slow. He could maybe play rook c3, and then if we play c6, then he could take back. And if we take back this way, he would be able to grab the pawn. And if he took back and we played b6, that's possibly an idea after rook b2. But he's also threatening to just take this pawn straight up after rook b2 to rook to c3. But rook b2, I think, should be an option that we take into account. Let's say he plays king to d7. We play c6, b takes c6, b6, king c8, b7 check, king b8, and we get a very similar position as if we play c6 right away. And that's not taking into account any other counterplay that he could generate with his rooks while we spend a tempo playing rook b2. There's other ideas that he could possibly have. So rook b2 also is an option. Moving this rook at all does not seem like an option unless we can use that to force like an imminent promotion, literally on maybe even the next turn, because d1 equals queen just seems so strong. I mean, let's take a look at that. So let's look at this sequence again. After taking, and sorry about my mouse there. B takes c6. Let's get king d8. Boom, boom. King c8. And now if we go rook b1, let's say he promotes, and we just let him promote, and we give a check on b8, and then he goes king to d7. I think that's the only legal move. Then we promote to a queen on him, and that's a check as well. He goes to c7, and we can give a check on e8, and that's checkmate, actually, with the queen in that scenario. And so I think that justifies the promotion, because we would immediately have a promotion with a check, and he doesn't have an opportunity to give a check with his queen to gain the initiative on us. So that looks like a very strong plan. So does he have anything after rook b1 to stop that? He can't bring his rook to the b file. He just doesn't have the tempo for it. Rook to e1 doesn't really do anything. Let's see if he has any options outside of king d8 here on this move. Rook c3 doesn't stop anything. It just loses the rook to us. And let me try to think a little bit more deeply here just to see if he has any other options. Bring this rook back to e6, for example. We would just push, and then there's no stopping the pawn if it gets to the 7th rank. In that case, we would just promote to a queen with a check, and we're not really concerned about his pawn because we're still blockading it. So that looks all very good to me. Let's give that a try. So he goes rook e1 instead. Okay, so here, this is definitely some counterplay, and as we had originally planned, I think we can just take this pawn with our rook. But let's check that to make sure that we're not losing the opportunity to win. So rook takes. If rook takes here, then rook takes. We've traded off a pair of rooks, and then he goes rook c1. And here we are losing this pawn. We can take on d5, but then he would just take on c6, and we would have a 3 pawns to 3 pawn endgame that looks very drawish with only 1 rook on each side. Pay attention to the fact that I think taking here would be a mistake, because he can take this rook on d1, and then we take one of his rooks, and he takes the other rook. He's up a rook. So we have to capture with the d rook if we were to capture with any rook. So that looks like a draw. If we were to just push this pawn and sacrifice our rook here, let him take, and then we promote to a queen, and then we have quite a bit of extra material. Then he can slide his rook to f1, threaten to promote, and then I think we could just go for an attack at that point and try to checkmate him before he even has a chance to promote. And I like our prospects of doing that. So let's go ahead and just push this pawn and promote it to a queen. And that's the end of that puzzle. Okay, so let's look at the analysis by the computer just to see what he can do at the end of this puzzle. Let's say he goes rook f1 or something like that to try to do the promotion. And it says we have a mate in 5 after rook c7 check. King d6, rook c6 check, king e5, queen e6 check, king d4, queen g4 check. That's a very nice check. And after king e3, rook e6 is made. So it looks like just going in for the king hunt there after the promotion is enough. We don't have to worry about him promoting that pawn. So I hope you guys have gotten a good amount out of this puzzle. It was a pretty quick one, and we solved it using some heuristics about keeping the initiative up and having a kingside, having an attack on his king to compensate for the potential of him promoting. And these factors aligned in our favor here, allowing us to solve this puzzle pretty easily, I would say. So go ahead and watch any of the previous videos that I've posted. Reach out to me on Gmail if you're interested in chess improvement. And go ahead and subscribe for more videos like this every single day.